Alright, y'all, welcome back to Anime Savants. This week I am Jehuti.
Oh shit. Oh, this week I'm Gohan.
Oh no, I got some
we
shit
already
to
did.
say.
We already did
Oh
Pissy
my
all over
God.
Vegeta. So
Oh my god.
gotta be Gohan this week.
That's in the lane that I wanted to talk about later because I have
Good.
questions. I
Good.
have questions. Very many questions. Because you know the niggas have already spoiled it all on YouTube. So I'm just like, I have questions. I didn't get the complete spoilers, but I have like a spoiler on like one particular thing. So it's just like, okay, whatever. But alright, let's begin. Fucking hilarious episode of Spy Family. Holy shit. This was amazing. This was amazing. M. Bison's son came through.
Yeah.
Bill the what was his name? Bill the Annihilator?
Yeah.
Bill the Cannon? Something?
That motherfucker was not a child.
I literally was just thinking, I was like, this is not a child. It's like an undercover person or something.
But it was. But actually, it was.
It was a child. It was genetics. It literally was just genetics. And the way that Becky was responding to him, I'm like, yes, girl, he's not a child. He's not a child. Like,
I think she was the only one who was like, oh,
freaking
this is
out.
not right. Yeah, this ain't right.
I loved Damien's trio shit. Also, they were on Namek. They were on fucking Namek. Damien
I love
stopped
that
in the
too.
ball.
I love that as well.
The background, I was like, that nigga's on Namek. Oh, are you kidding me? Yes. Also, the Kage Bunshin shit with them doing this. I loved it. I fucking loved it. It was hilarious.
The fucking three dudes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was fucking hilarious.
Good.
I loved how basically Damien got shine, and I mean, I was already kind of pretty positive that his parents were pieces of shit anyways, because they weren't in that photo, and I noticed they weren't in that photo when it got taken. So of course they're following that back up, and you're teaching Anya shit. Like, she's just like, everything mama teaches me is useless, and it's not that it's useless. It's just that you can't do it yet. Like, that's the problem. But as far as the anime, basically this was like an ode to shonen. Like, it was like shonen parodies.
Yeah, it was a shonen battle series that they compressed into one episode.
Yes. Just
they
from
did
like
everything.
The bottom shots, the hair flowing in the wind with her like this, and then the magical girl final attack with the stars in the background, and Bill basically being overcome by the shit.
It was great. God. No, it was absolutely great.
Phenomenal.
Even though, if you really think about it, Anya almost didn't do anything in this episode because all the other characters were doing stuff, and it was like a build up for her. And then of course it was played for a joke, which it should have been, because like what? There ain't no fucking way that. Yeah.
I was under the foolish impression that Damien was going to do all this, then Anya actually was going to have some kind of highlight moment where she actually starts taking other people out as opposed to Bill.
Right,
and then something happens. But of course, it's not that. Oh my God. I just cannot tell you how insane it was with not only the fact that she threw the ball and missed, she literally threw that shit right down in front of her.
Yes.
I
mean, what do you expect? No one can do that shit.
Oh my God, that shit was
do it.
So funny. That shit was fucking hilarious. The way all of it was flawless. Just the way that whole scene came together. It was fucking flawless. And the fact that Damien was actually starting to acknowledge her to some point. And the teacher was like, oh, they can actually get along. This is actually working out. No, I'm like, them niggas are going.
I was like, nah, they go right back to the argument at the beginning.
I just need Anya to like chop homeboy with like the updo. With like the hair like that. I was like, Anya, you can easily just like annihilate that nigga verbally.
Oh, she
like,
can handle that. Yeah, no question about that.
One thing. But I loved that episode. Did it push the plot? I mean, kinda. But
a little bit. Teeny bit.
It was literally just like slice of life comedy. Shonen troll, like, perfect. It was right. It was so
there's a lot of like the little details. You brought up a couple of them. One thing that I appreciate. So when I heard Bill start talking, I'm like, I know this voice actor. I'm not as good as you. Oh. I'm not as good as you as like, pulling him out of my ear. But I'm like, I've heard him before. Where have I heard him? I hear him all the time. this dude is Guile's voice actor for most of the modern Street Fighter games. It's Chad's voice actor in Bleach. He also did what was the other big one that he did? Charon from Fire Force. And a lot of other, and I'm just like, because I've heard this guy before. It's funny because when you look at his acting roles, it's very clear that he's typecast to, very masculine, big burly guy. In fact, some of the characters he's been cast as before have the exact same facial features as the Bill character here. Yeah. So I was just like, because I know that voice. It is Guile, and I think he's also Guile in the new Street Fighter game as well, because he's been playing him since Street Fighter went to 3D. So. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I will give it to him though. I started cracking up when the dad showed up. He goes, "Hi, daddy." There's just so many little parts of this fucking episode that were just spot on. I need to find out who directed this particular
I have
episode.
no idea. This one felt very much more like a traditional comedy slice of life show. Much more. One, because it's a very self-contained, right? As you pointed out, there wasn't a lot of plot. There was some plot movement because we learned more about, say, the background of the butler dude, what his daily life is, because there was more introspection from his characters. In fact, you could probably argue that his character had if not the most, at least equal timeshare from their point of view. Yeah, definitely the beginning and the end, but framing the whole episode. I didn't believe for a second that there was an opportunity to get a Stella out of not for 1 second, because and they and it's a good thing that they made it clear in the beginning that this was just a kid's rumor, because it meant that there were stakes in the episode, but they all felt kind of tongue-in-cheek from the beginning, rather than having it seriously the audience believe that this is going to be a pivotal thing, and then to play it off as a joke at the end. Didn't feel bad at all, because you kind of got the feeling that this is some shit that the kids came up with that literally nobody else corroborated. So when the dude at the end was like, "Oh, I could give them a Stella for all this teamwork," and then they just completely collapsed. It was dangling the opportunity that maybe it really could be, but that shit wasn't never going to happen. So I like that. There were a lot of really good voice performances. I think the little side characters for Damien, his little minions, they were cracking me. Yes, they were cracking me up.
And then Homeboy gets beamed right as he's over Homeboy. Beautiful.
Yes, there was characters like that. I'm more impressed when a show or writers are able to do something with them rather than have them be one-note jokes, because up until this point, what's the joke with them? The joke is that they think Damien is the shit. He's the greatest guy ever. They'll pretty much do anything. They're antagonistic towards just about everybody else. So all jokes with them kind of play on those notes of them being buffoons, and then having their comeuppance for their, overzealousness. Even when they don't get hurt, when they thought that, Damien was going to, really cut Anya down in, episode 5 or 6 or whatever, and it turned out that, he just ran away crying, and then they're making all the excuses, as he's running. Even those are, it's showing that they're idiots. In this one, they're still dumb, right? But on multiple occasions, you can see they are still just children, right? They're earnestly trying to, their imaginations are wild. Their relationship with each other, not necessarily with Damien, just amongst themselves, was cute, right? It's just some dumb shit kids would do. So it was a good diversion from the stakes of prior episodes, where even the stuff with Yuri and Yor, which was again a very limited episode a couple weeks ago, where it pretty much all took place just in the house with just those characters. There was still that serious edge that, oh right, Yuri is a secret. I mean, he literally tortures somebody to death right before they do that scene. So there's it's serious. This whole episode was what are the fucking stakes here?
Yeah.
What are they? It's just the kids not getting along, a fun dodgeball game, cameos, jokes, and then at the end it's they were a bunch of dumbasses, and then they move on. So it's the equivalent of the beach episodes in other shows, but not obnoxious. This was this was what people have been asking for. It's like, we want to see more stuff happening with, you know, the school.
Yeah.
And it was a very good tonal shift away from what had been going on with
super spies.
Exactly. Yeah, and does it lead anywhere? I mean, maybe, you know, Anya kind of now knows a little bit more about Damien's motivations, and, you know, there was a little bit of character. We can kind of, for example, see the trajectory of, like, what's going to happen with that character. You know, you know, so that's a good thing. We only really have, like, 2 episodes. 2? 1? I don't know how many episodes we have left.
I think we have 2, yeah.
We got 11, 2. Okay, 12, so so if we got 2 episodes left, again, I ain't read it, so I don't kind of know what the end point is. There's no real
whatever, if there's gonna be.
Yeah, there's no real arc. I presume it probably ends with her getting a star for something. Probably. But beyond that, I don't know nothing. So, you know, I'm just excited. I had a fun time with this episode this week, and then once again it goes off, and I'm like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do for the rest of my week? Like, what else
am I gonna watch? Exactly. Yeah. What else did I watch? I also watched Otome Game. I actually really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't see the Olivia part. Actually, I didn't see the power-up shit coming with the girls. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting more so, like, the auxiliary students to be highlighted, which they were.
Like a little bit.
A little bit. But this was way more about the 3 of them being in a dire circumstance and not want to have any regrets with each other in the case that something happened, which, of course, we know it's an anime plot armor. Right. Yeah, like, you niggas ain't gonna happen to you motherfuckers, but whatever. I liked how it linked Olivia's growth to Leon's direct meddling. So he said, or what, Lexion or Zexion? Luxion, yeah. He said, yeah, even though she doesn't have the items, even though she's not getting the items, because you've been chilling and hanging out with her, she's had actual time to study and, like, progress on her own, as opposed to being the center of Angelica's universe and being ruined and then needing those items to become who she is. She basically is just doing it by herself now. Or that's kind of how I'm thinking that she still needs the items, because they highlighted those shrine charms, which also it comes back around to the shrine charms where he was being selfish and wanted them all for himself.
He did.
He wanted 100%. All of them. Yeah, he wanted all of them for himself. But in the end, by it being spread out to all of them, it ended up helping him, because he wasn't going to be able to defend the ship. If they didn't have those charms, that ship would have they would have died. Them kids.
Right. He also didn't know that was going to happen. So this is we're beyond the limits of sort of whatever his knowledge about the game in terms of the order and when things happen is going down. I mean, he can definitely overpower a lot of the enemies now that he's running into. That's not the issue. Yeah. It's like because we already saw an episode back that, like, if he doesn't have the ship and he doesn't have, you know, prep time, he could just get surrounded and beat up by regular ass people. So yeah.
Also, he's using rubber bullets, which I was like, ugh, using rubbers. Like,
you know what? Shut up. You know what? This show is, the levels of brutality are not high enough. Yeah. Not for the kind of thing. We watched.
I just need him to get somebody back for the kick in the face, and like I need him to get somebody back. I need him to get his licks back, because that shit pissed me off so much.
Well, this isn't Realist Hero, where you can have like an episode about, like, I don't know, building bridges, and the next episode the main character murders like the entire like upper court because of some Machiavellian political scheme. Yeah,
2 niggas lived. Oh my god,
it's a different vibe, I think. That the
and
show
they
is
set
going
that
for.
Up at the end of the episode before, and then they were dead by the middle of the next episode. Like, okay, great.
I enjoy this episode. I agree with you that we needed some kind of evidence that Leon's activity wasn't all bad, because he was sort of dumping on himself a lot in terms of like, oh, I fucked these people over pretty bad. Yeah. And it can't be like just a one-way street. And I think that I know that at some level it does undermine a bit of the emotional punch of a couple episodes back, especially when Luxion was sort of lecturing him about, like, hey, you've stopped various characters' psychological growth because you're just, you don't treat them like people. You treat them like a member of the game just with a problem to solve, and you're just too OP. So it does take a little bit away from that like there was some benefit, but it like realistically, it is true what the explanation that was given, and so that meant that when all the characters kind of had their turnaround, especially that little sweet moment where you got the confession and whatever, it felt still earned.
It felt earned, but I didn't even really care about the confession, to be honest.
It didn't matter.
I was like, okay, like whatever. I'm already positive that he's gonna marry both of them in the future or whatever.
Whatever reverse harem shit that they're going for. Which another positive point was that they took time this episode to explain why the male students could actually put up a fight. Because they've been training in order to get a wife. Get married. I thought that was like, okay, we need to remind people that's what the shit is about. I appreciated that because again, makes you like put your eyebrow up a little bit, like the show has something to say about these issues. Still, it's not like a one note kind of thing. It comes up like multiple times, so I appreciated it. And we're kind of in wrap-up mode for this part of the story, so people kind of had to have some revelations here. Otherwise, what are we doing? I agree.
Yeah, I think that it only has one episode left, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, it only has one episode left, so yeah, we'll see about that one. And then on other news, so I was caught up, but then now I'm one episode behind. But I finally watched I'm Quitting Heroing. And holy shit.
I know. We can talk about this one now.
Yeah, we could. James has been vaguely saying it, but watching it is kind of like, yo, what the fuck is this twist? Like,
what's going on?
Oh my god. And it's not like the twist happens and then they go back to the army development stuff. They're like, no, that's done.
No.
Like, it's over. Like, it's actually getting dark now. Like, dark. And not in a niggas are getting arms and shit chopped off and things like that. But it's psychologically dark and just, like, it's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up for the basis for the hero and what he is and what he's doing. So, I mean, you could just go for it. You say what you've been wanting to say.
All right, we're going to go. And the current episode... is episode 11, so there's one more episode left. Jordan, you watched the 10. I'm fully caught up.
You can go ahead and tell me what happens on 11. I'm gonna watch it. It's like
so in episode 5 and 6, it covers Leon and Marinus sort of getting to know each other, getting to understand each other, and at the end of episode, I think it's episode 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's 6 and 7, but. At the end of the first episode of that communication block, Leon teaches Marinus that like you have to think about what the person that you're interacting with socially would want to talk about, what's on their mind. Kind of like, get to know someone so that you can communicate better. Very easy advice. We get to the end of their little arc, and so they have a little conversation after the fact where Marinus is like, okay, I learned how to communicate with other people. Now I'm going to take what I've learned and apply it to you. I think that you want to talk about something. And Leon who the character so far has not been particularly evasive. And all of a sudden he's making excuses. He's trying to change the subject, which is very like out of character. And then we get hit with, okay, I'm going to tell you what's really on my mind, what's really going on. And we find out about Leon's actual backstory. So up until the point in the series, he's just sort of been, former hero. I got sick of doing this shit. I want to go and like work for the demon army because they seem like cool people and da-da-da. Very lighthearted. His backstory is fucking wild. So this show was something completely... I thought this was a just straight up fantasy, right? It is. It's also a sort of kind of post-apocalyptic sci-fi as well, because we find out that the world that Leon comes from isn't some high fantasy universe or whatever. It is a world that seems very similar and grounded. It's probably Earth. They don't say it, but like it looks like modern day Japan. And you find out that where he got made was during a demon invasion thousands and thousands of years ago when there was technology and everything else, and he's like a bioengineered super weapon that is like designed to like fight and grow over time. And the reason why he's so out of sorts these days that he's been alive for so long that he now doesn't really have like a material purpose, or feels like he doesn't have a purpose other than to protect humanity. And as we move forward in the story, we learn a bit more about his backstory. We discover that not only does he feel like he doesn't have a purpose, he also feels like something has gone wrong in his programming or his development, such that he is breaking down. And he begins to fear that because he is so strong, and that there's nothing left to really threaten humanity because he can beat anything, that he himself, his programming, is going to drive him to destroy humanity, or to at least create danger in order to give himself a reason to live. Which is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that wasn't the backstory that I expected. It also, then that sets the tone for the last 3 to 4 episodes where, you know, Leon is like, okay, or Leo is like, all right, I'm good. I gotta die. And the way I'm taking myself out, since I've identified that like Echidna and all of her homies, they have the traits and the wherewithal and the goodwill to be the real heroes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have them. I'm gonna create a scenario where they have to kill me, and leads them all to a mountain, and essentially, you know, goes easy on them this time with the intention to convince them to just murder him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fucking crazy. So that's everything up to episode 10. Episode 11, we find out even more that, in fact, it wasn't just conjecture that he might try to destroy humanity. Literally, the moment before the demon army shows up, Leo kind of goes insane and manages to recreate the 7 other models of himself, and he was going to have them give them the command to annihilate humanity. And then at the very last minute, he has like a mind break and is like, what the fuck am I doing? And destroys the lab that he was in, only to then find out that the demons are attacking. So that was his... They show him like mentally breaking down over thousands of years. Like, you know, okay, at first he's very much like, okay, this is my mission, I gotta protect. Yeah. And then as time goes on, he like people will say things to him and like he stops feeling emotions. He stops like caring that the humans actually feel safe now, because when a person in the street says, oh, I feel so safe now that we live in such peace, all he can feel is disappointment that there's nothing for him to do, and he has no purpose. Then he starts ruminating about whether he could kill everybody, and would anyone even be able to stop him, and like, you get to see him just fall. And then the last piece is, we don't know the outcome, but obviously the killer spell is launched, and he gets hit by every member of the team and seemingly dies. Now, I presume that Echidna is going to think of a way to save him without killing him. But what he laid out doesn't really leave a lot of room for like a fancy special ending, because he basically said like he's lived too long. The problem isn't that he's overwhelmingly powerful. The problem is that too many bugs have piled up in his bioengineered programming where he cannot trust himself anymore. And when you're dealing with some shit like that, like, I don't know what the workaround is other than die.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah, like, I don't know the answer to that one. But in any case, that's where you kind of leave off. The most of the episode 11 is a long flashback with Leo, because the prior episode, it was a longer flashback with like Echidna, where you find out about like, you know, her ancestors and all that shit. So like
magical spells, shit like that.
Yeah, so they did a power of friendship scene, but the power of friendship was to kill their friend. So I don't know. Like,
the show literally just keeps giving it to us. I love it. I like watched it over the past 2 days, and like when it first started, I was thinking, oh, this kind of has a weird, especially with like the intro scene where he was walking in and the animation quality was kind of like really cool looking. I'm thinking, oh, this kind of looks like serious. And he goes in there and the comedy ensues, etc., etc. And we go throughout the episodes. But I just have to let y'all know that the shift was it wasn't abrupt. It was just out of nowhere. Like, which, I mean, I guess that's what abrupt means, but you know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't telegraphed.
It wasn't telegraphed.
Like, there was I didn't get a feeling that when I was watching the first 5 or 6 episodes that, like, oh, it's going to be like that kind of thing. Oh, we're dealing with some kind of, like existentially dreadful ideas here that are like, not fun. Like, it reminded me of...
Not fun!
It definitely reminded me of, like, even watching, like, Reconquista, we keep coming back to that, where it's like, oh, this is like Mecha Show, okay, it's Gundam, maybe it's a little weird, what the fuck?
No.
What the fuck? Like,
nope.
that was my reaction. Now, it wasn't quite as, like, dramatically awful. I was just like, oh, we're going in this direction. I don't know what you do with this.
Yeah.
And keep it, like, you know, in the direction I thought things were going in. Well, we fucking figured it out now, so... Kudos to them.
Yeah. Well, now I'm probably gonna go watch that shit as soon as possible. But
which is what I meant by if they wanted to have a continuation.
Yeah.
The opportunity to do it would basically be, so they have a scene where he destroys the lab that he recreated that would have been able to make all the other heroes, and they are about to wake up, but he like cuts all of them down and like breaks down on his knees, like, what the fuck have I done? I could see if the story wanted to continue that, like, he gets depowered as a result of all this other shit, but he made a version of it. He made a model like himself, so that thing could maybe live,
be like fresh.
Exactly, and it would be like him when he started, right? So it's hasn't absorbed all the abilities of all the things he'd fought for 3,000 years, but it would be more or less unkillable.
Wow, that would be a nice way to continue it then. Yeah, so
right.
He gets depowdered in a sense. Yeah.
But they don't have to do that either. They could just wrap it up. You know, it's fine.
Which I feel like I would recommend this to people, like, from now, just based off of this, even though it hasn't even wrapped up. I would recommend this to people who are just like, I'm looking for something to watch. Well, you know, if you haven't seen this is... It's not one of those Attack on Titan jerky,
absolutely
like,
not.
oh my god. But it's just the... oh shit, like, what's going on? Oh my god. And so I think that it's an easy marathon, I think, over like one day in the weekend. If you're like looking for something and you think you've watched everything, or you know, you're just in between episodes for something, I would recommend picking this up because I've just enjoyed it the entire time. You might not like the first few episodes, basically, because we're talking about like the crazy shit. Like, the crazy shit starts episode 5, 6. But before that, it's more so akin to like realist hero, city building, planning, logistics, assigning workloads, things like that, which clearly we like because we really liked Realist Hero and Genius Prince. So,
right.
Like, come on, like, I don't know what else to tell you. But yeah, I highly recommend it. We will be ready for that final episode because I want to know what the fuck is going to happen. Okay,
that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. Like, these little like B and C tier productions that punch a little bit above their weight class because they do something interesting that you can consume in a short amount of time, and if you aren't trying to dig too deep into something that's going on, there will be no fandom, you know, for these types of series, but there's at least enough interesting happening that while you're watching it, you're like, this is not a waste of my time.
It definitely doesn't feel like a waste of time. Agreed.
Right.
Did you watch anything else?
I did. So I actually got around to watching Kukuru's Doan's Island, the new Gundam movie. We've talked multiple times about different aspects of both
like
its
how
production,
it's spin-off after spin-off,
spin-off and everything else. And I, you know, someone who was original Gundam watcher and barely remembered that episode, which is episode 15 of the original Gundam series, if you ever want to check that out. I would say that the movie has a lot more going for it than that episode. The broad plot, which has not actually changed all that much from the episode it's expanding, is that it takes place right around the time that the White Base and Amuro have come to Earth, and it's if anyone has ever watched Gundam, and I'm gonna make an argument for like why a movie like this probably should just mean they should just remake the original Gundam as like a TV series. Most people don't really remember the story of the original Gundam, let alone the kind of phases that it went through or any of the characters, which means that when you turn on this movie, there's a lot that you are either expected to pick up really quickly or just know. Because the Amuro Ray character has shown up in a lot of media over the years, but the version most people are familiar with is the Amuro Ray that's an adult, or at least was around. Gundam, was around after the original series. Like all the iconic stuff that most Gundam fans might be familiar with is what he looked like during the Char's counterattack movie, which is canonically when he dies. So that's him as an adult. Amuro Ray is really supposed to be, I think, 15 or 16 years old for throughout the events of most of the original Gundam. He only, I think, 2 years. Or no, 1 year passes during the original Gundam series. It's exactly 1 year. So he starts out at 15 and ends at 16. So the thing is that the Amuro Ray character actually has multiple phases during the UC show that have, in some ways, very little to do with each other. By the end of the show, he's this hardened ace taking on the best whatever. He's been through a lot of emotional shit. Both of his parents have a bunch of shit happens. But by episode 15, this is like peak angsty Amuro, but it's also peak angsty everybody on the crew, because the plot of the original show was Amuro's dad creates the Gundam. It's this prototype that the federal forces have to fight against the big robots that the Zeon have, which are the Zaku. It's on the colony where the family grows up. The colony is attacked by the Zeon. Amuro's dad essentially dies, but before he dies, he kind of shows that he doesn't give a fuck about his son. All he cares about is the robot. And of course, Amuro gets in the robot and all the stuff happens. He gets down to Earth. And by this point, everybody on the white base is in a very weird place, because up until maybe episode 12 or 13, they were kind of operating on a very ad hoc basis. Amuro's a literal child who's now been drafted into this war effort because it turns out he's a genius pilot. But there are actual children who were the survivors off of the side 7, I think, that they come from. Like, there's a lot of people on the white base that are not military people. And some of them weren't, but got drafted in the middle of the fight. And Amuro's in like a very angsty place because he's been rejected by his mom, who he met on Earth, and basically she was horrified that he was a pilot. And Bright, who's the captain, he's a young. People forget that Bright, that character, is also super young, and he is kind of sick of Amuro. He wants Amuro to leave because he doesn't like the fact that they're employing child soldiers. He also thinks Amuro's immature and doesn't.
15, yeah. So
it doesn't, and either shouldn't be there or for like behavioral reasons because he's still a fucking brat. But then also for like ethical reasons, he wants him off the ship, but he knows he can't get rid. The only way he can get rid of him is for Amuro to quit, because the Fedi government is just gonna use him because he's a genius. Yeah. So that's where we're at the beginning of the series. There's a lot of tension, and a lot of characters had already had a lot going on, which is not explained at all. At all.
So you have to know that backstory.
Because if you don't know it, it seems like everyone's being an asshole to each other for no good reason. And even when they do the flashbacks, it's flashbacks to asshole things that they were doing. For example, Bright canonically slaps the shit out of Amuro in like episode, I want to say like 13 or 14. So it just happened. Like he went to his cabin, Amuro was complaining about something, and Bright just like gives him the 2 piece of the biscuit, and Amuro's like, "You slapped me! Not even my mom slapped me!" It's like, bro, like he's a brat, he's an asshole. And then the plot of the actual episode is, after this event happens, they are given orders to go investigate this island where they've been losing patrols, and it's supposed to be like a tiny little mission, and so Amuro kind of leaves in a huff with a couple of people from the white base to go investigate this island. He lands on the island to look around, gets defeated in combat by a Zaku and knocked out, and he wakes up, and instead of like being captured, he's at a lighthouse with all these little kids, and their caretaker, and this guy Doan, who is clearly the Zeon pilot who beat him, but for whatever reason he's like helping him out. He's like nursing him back to health. He's like farming, and you find out that like Doan has kind of taken over the caretaker role for the people who are on this island, who are all there, all orphans, to escape the war. There's also a young woman who's sort of like looking after them, and that's all you know for most of the episode until it turns out that he isn't just there by choice. Yeah, he's a Zeon defector, but he's there because he is trying to interfere with a Zeon plan. So then some Zeon guys show up, he fights him, loses, Amuro joins him, they win in the end, and then Doan sort of ritualistically gives up his Zaku to basically be like, I'm now finally putting down my sword, I am now, whatever. But the tension is Amuro gonna have to kill Doan because he lost the fight. Now that's not what happens. So that's the content of the original episode. They expand a shit ton of that in the movie. In the movie, all the same beats happen, but we also find out about Doan and his history. And it turns out he was the leader of a elite Zeon unit, and he defected once he got to Earth and they were slaughtering like people in cities. Ooh, and he was like, bro, I can't do this. But he's an ace pilot, and he leaves. His old unit is full of crazy assholes who are also probably aces. Yeah, they're enjoying the slaughter, but they're also probably Zeon aces as well. They're very, very upset that Doan defected, but the rumor is that he's dead. And it turns out that what they flesh out more in this in the movie is that on the island is a nuclear weapon system, which is a failsafe built by the Zeon, that if the Fetties are able to counterattack, they would nuke all the major cities.
Oh my god.
To destroy the culture of the Earth. So like, London, France, Paris, Washington, D.C., like they're going to destroy all these places with nukes despite the treaty, the Antarctica Treaty, which bans all nukes in the Gundam universe. They're going to do that anyway. Now that part is added on, at least from my memory, like there's not that, that detail is not a major part, but it does offer a really cool... It adds
stakes.
Yeah, it adds stakes, and so now we've got like the Ace team coming in. They've got a reason to be there once they find out that Doan might be alive, because Amuro helps the kids repair the lighthouse, which has been turned off. He thinks that it's like, oh, I'm doing everyone a solid because like the water generators are, but by him turning the lighthouse back on, that lighthouse was a cover for the broadcast system back to the Zeon about the status of that base that they're about to fire all that stuff off from. So, they've managed to like pull together a slightly more impressive story.
Interesting.
There's like 2 or 3. There's 4. There's 4 major like fight scenes that involve like cool units. Some of them aren't that long, but you get to see Doan basically kick Amuro's ass, and you could argue that like Amuro was very out of his own headspace given what was going on.
From the white base,
right. So that part was super fun. I like the enemy Zaku team because they don't have a lot of time to establish them, but like it's like every archetype. There's like the guy who just joined the team who's like a psychopath who only joined so he could fight Doan because he heard he was strong. There's the leader who is obsessed with the fact that he was always number 2 when in terms of skill when Doan was in the team. Now he's in charge of it, but all people can talk about is the old commander. Doan. There's the female pilot who may have had a thing for him but felt betrayed because he left them to do whatever. And then there's like the fodder guys so they can get killed off real quick in the beginning. There's actually a fucking fantastic and dark scene where Amuro catches a Zeon pilot out of his suit and fucking steps on him.
Oh!
And it's played like a horror movie because in the beginning, Amuro and one of the kids from the island are like running away from the Zeon who are in the suit, but he managed to get into the Gundam in an underground base, and so the guy pulls the curtain back with his Zaku, sees the Gundam, and then like Amuro immediately like launches at him and like annihilates him with like the sword through the cockpit so the thing doesn't explode. And then the other pilot hears it and he's running for his suit. And instead, Amuro's like slowly walking with the Gundam out of the dark, and the guy's like screaming, and then you see the foot come down. So like, this is not like a, like, you know, Gundam is cool. You see Gundam especially because dudes get whopped. Like when you're overpowered by like an ace or like a team that's fucking crazy, like people getting their heads blown off, like suits getting dismantled, dismembered, chopped in half. Like when people go out, they go out hard in these series, and the animation was good, music was very good, and the vibe. Obviously they had to change a lot of the lines, right? Because they added so much, and that they even they clearly redid obviously almost every shot from the original. So the voice performances fit. They feel like I'm watching original Gundam. But then I step back at the end, right? Like I look at the whole thing. It's about an hour and a half, and it's beautiful. And they used some CGI to save money, but it looked good, you know, on a lot of the combat. I'm like, if you can do this, why not just remake the series? This feels like the time to do it. Like we've had
Gunpla is surging.
Exactly. We've had like how many years since 50? Almost. Are we on the 50-year anniversary, or we got to be close? So. We got to be real close.
Something? 80?
Yeah, I don't know, but
yeah,
because I mean, Gundam came out in the early 70s, right?
Was it early 70s?
I think it was early 70s. The original Gundam. I mean, I can't be sure, but it's got to be. If not,
I think you're right.
If not the 50-year anniversary,
no, 1979.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like I think then that would make this the 45th. 44th?
Yeah.
Whatever. We're close. Yeah. Whatever it is, we're some anniversary, but like this is the moment. Nobody out there, like we've had like literally like 12 generations, you know, 10 to 12 generations. If you get kind of generation by like, you know, every 5 to 7 years. Like there's a lot of kids who don't know what the fuck UC Gundam is. There's no good easy way to go back and catch it. Even the remastered like stuff, the only thing they've ever done is like add some scenes for like a Zeta Gundam, you know, in the movie versions. Like there has not been a remake, and this is perfect. They've clearly been fucking around with like using CGI to replace a lot of the hand drawn like mecha stuff. It started a while ago, and like this movie is proof that like you can do a very convincing, slightly updated UC Gundam series. They literally just remade one episode. Just remake all the episodes. You don't have to spend all this fucking money. Yeah. Just like redo it. And the voice actors were perfect. Amuro sounded great. All the other recast members of the crew were awesome. And I couldn't tell. I mean, you know, I'm a Gundam fan, so Kai and Hayato and Sayla and all those other people, like they sounded good to me. They sounded convincingly, you know, like the original voice actors. I don't know how many came back and how many didn't, but that's not the point. The point is, after I finished watching this, all I could think about was A, that they should just do a remake Gundam series now, strike while the iron is hot, and B, this movie got made off the strength, purely off the strength of like a few limited edition UC Gundam model kits.
So, on that note, I feel like one thing that probably they should be doing, but they didn't do, and I feel like it's a misstep because when we talk about Gundam and like mainstream stuff, I'm like Gundam Build Fighters, that's like 2013. So that's when the shit started like popping off. But I remember like recently when Ready Player One came out and the Gundam was in it.
Yes.
I remember seeing on the internet people being like, "What is this? A Gundam? What Gundam is that?" And it's like, what do you mean, what Gundam is that, bitch? That's the OG one. But because they didn't put like the Exia or like the 00 Gundam in that shit, niggas was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, what is this? Like, that's a Gundam?
Well, that shows you about that fucking Exia, man.
Yeah. Oh my god. So I'm thinking, like, you know, if there's ever a time, like you said, it's now, because people are interested, but they're interested in those suits. So it's like, and you know, niggas are not gonna go watch original Gundam. The way that it looks right now,
no,
they're not touching it. They're not touching it. Unless they're like a whatchamacallit, like the retro anime platform thing, unless they're one of those people who are like, oh, I only watch anime released before 1995, like, or some shit like that, then those niggas will watch it. But as far as like mainstream original Gundam, they're gonna have to remake it, or else it'll just have to pop up in Super Robot Wars. That's it. Yeah, and even when he's in Super Robot Wars, they always give him V Gundam.
Yeah,
Victory Gundam. Yeah. So,
which is pretty random to me. Now, I will admit, I only pay attention to like international sales figures, and then if I care, sometimes if I'm like looking for, because I buy a lot of not a lot. I buy some model kits, and so I tend to just keep my eye open to know, okay, when is there a release announcement for something? Does it mean I buy it? No, but like you can kind of tell by what gets released where the interest level is for a lot of stuff. And I can tell you for a fact that in Japan, from a pop culture point of view, the original UC Gundam is still incredibly recognizable. We're talking like the way people in the United States know who The Rock is, people in Japan know the original Gundam as like an icon. So it's very iconic in Japan, but as it is. As far as the hero suits in a lot of the games and in a lot of the just media in general, for whatever reason, it is Exia, which I think probably has a lot to do with Build Fighters because of how popular that series is domestically and then got outside of Japan. So it's both suits are very well known. What I like to think about though is like, okay, so this movie got made. I don't know exactly what it cost to make, but I know that it in the week that it had been out, it probably made about like $7 or $8 million. Which, if you just take a mental math of like a lot of animated movies in the Japanese market, they typically don't actually have like humongous budgets by Hollywood standards. We're talking like maybe you get to like a $7 or $8 million movie, but even like the Evangelion movies didn't cost more than like I think 20 or 30 million.
What?
Yeah, I know. They're not big productions by Western standards. So that's why when you look at like what these movies gross, and it's not like I don't think there's been $1 billion movie ever produced out of the Japanese market. Whereas like in the United States and through Hollywood, you typically get one every 3 or 4 years, right? An Avengers movie will do it, or the whatever, like Avatar or something. But like those movies have $300-400 million budgets sometimes. That's what like a AAA Hollywood production. Japan doesn't cost that much relative. So what I'm saying in all of this is, when you look at plastic model sales, when they start grossing in the billions of dollars, it becomes very easy to understand how a movie like this, which can not possibly be for more than the very familiar Japanese market where like 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds know what Gundam is and were into it when they were kids, or like the super hardcore anime nerds who are into the Gundam as it is right now, and then the Gunpla people who may not really watch anime but they love the plastic. You put those three markets together just in Japan, that pays for this film. You take it overseas, that's just like a cherry on top. And if you took that same budget and put it towards a TV series, you'd get a pretty good TV series. So they can just fund almost anything off of plastic models. They can do it. Plastic. So just do it. Like, what are we fucking waiting for? Do a remake series. Go pick up those the side. There's like 1 million Gundam side story mangas that can all be adapted. There's so many that did so well over the. I mean, the Hathaway's Flash is from a book, a Gundam novel that nobody in the United States ever read.
Yeah.
Like, relative to the population.
I didn't even know about that. I
Beltor Chica's Children, like, I know it exists because of, like, wiki shit. Okay? Yeah. I didn't even know where I would go buy a translated copy if I wanted one. So, they can make anything. They made that. They remade the worst episode animation wise of Gundam. That seems like a meme. The fact this movie exists is its own meme, but it is, and they spent millions of dollars on it.
Well,
so it's fucking wild.
Hopefully, the future bodes well for UC. Well, not UC because all that shit's under UC. Maybe they'll do something for Char's counterattack before they actually do something for like UC.
That's a good.
People know Char's name.
Yes, and the funny thing is that like I've rewatched the movie Char's counterattack, and it still holds up. It looks fucking fantastic, but, it's of that era of like the late 80s, hand drawn where. Mm-hmm. If you re-release it, even if you re-release like a remastered version of it, the audience for that versus like what new thing are you going to sell with a remaster? Because they've already done a Blu-ray re-release. What are you really gonna get for that? Not much. But if you do a remake or you do something that either takes place right before or right after, I swear that I read maybe 2 years ago that they were thinking about doing something with like some Jupiter Fleet related thing, like a movie or like a ONA, and then it kind of like fell off the face of the earth. That's why I was like looking at like the Witch from Mercury and Original. I'm like, is this another? Are they doing one of the UC ones? Because this is a crazy Mars spinoff, Mars and Jupiter spinoff for Gundam that is outrageous. It takes place at a really cool period, but I didn't see shit about that. So I'm cool with it. I recommend people go watch it. It's if you're into like anything Gundam at all. It's just a really long, incredibly well produced television episode. That's what it is. I don't think they ever pretended it was anything else. But you're not like if you're getting shit like this randomly, it's probably a good time to be a Gundam fan because like this is the last thing I would have spent my money on, and they just went for it.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I feel like I don't really need to watch it. Or maybe I'll watch it randomly and basically be like, oh, okay.
I would say that at some point they will repost a lot of the best sort of either action scenes or things like the Sakuga, which there's a lot. Like, I'm going to point out again, incredibly well animated, and the whole thing feels like what the remake of this series should look like.
Yes. Like what Dragon Ball Super should have looked like or something.
Yeah. Like if I got a series that looked like that's the thing though, like I hate Super, I hate it. But like when I watched Super, I was like, why didn't you do X? This is the thing that I want them to do with a remake of anything. UC Gundam. I want this, whatever they did with this movie, because it walks the line between really colorful, expressive, hand-drawn, authentic feeling UC Gundam stuff updated from the 70s and budget-friendly, CGI incorporated, modern-looking animation and effects that are very out of place when you remember what the original looked like, but in this, the way they mashed it together looked great. So do that. Whatever they did with Super, don't do that. Do the opposite of that.
Well, speaking of Super,
oh, boy.
I just have questions. I don't read the manga, but apparently the movies are canon. Brawley movie's supposed to be canon. Apparently Brawley was mentioned in the manga. Because I was just having a conversation with a friend this week. And so this takes place after the current arcs.
Okay.
Superheroes? Is that that's what it's supposed to be?
That's what I believe.
Okay, because I heard somewhere, I didn't see it, but Gohan has a new form. And I'm like, oh, well, if Gohan has a new form, I was like, well, was that in the manga? And it's not in the manga, so I'm like, well, if this is going to be canon, then where is it going to be introduced into the series? So,
I don't know.
Gohan has a new form, just like Piss Yellow Piccolo. I hope
shouldn't his form just be Super Saiyan 3? Like, what are we talking about here?
I just
the thing he never did?
I've forgotten the name. Someone told me the name, and I was like, if it's Mystic anything, I don't care.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree with you.
I
That
don't
boat
care.
sailed. That boat sailed in 1994.
I do not care. Mystic my ass. Like, who gives a fuck? I would like to see if Pawn gets some more highlights, but also, I think the thing that I was told was that it's definitely in the future as far as like the current arc in the manga, because Goten and Trunks are teens, so they are grown up a little bit more. So
Okay, wow, that's good.
I'm interested to see what they're gonna do with it. And also, apparently, they're supposed to be animating the moral arc, but no one knows when that's supposed to happen.
Okay.
And yeah.
Whatever.
And there's supposed to be like a Galaxy Police arc also. And I'm just, what are they doing? I know they have the money, but I don't know. I just have questions. I just had questions. And also, when you gonna bring Brawley back? I enjoyed that movie primarily for the Sakuga, but I enjoyed that movie. I really enjoyed that movie. But when are you gonna actually use the character? Like,
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. Does it feel to you like how there's like the Disney Vault, and as a company,
They're
Disney
just
is
dragging
so
shit out.
Yeah, like, and they're so like weirdly overprotective of their IP, but then also they'll abuse it for any reason to make up. It's just a strange spot to be in, where it's like, we are the caretakers of this legendary treasure of human culture, and so we're going to be very careful about doing anything interesting with it. And then on the other hand, it's like, oh, can you plaster the Little Mermaid all over a bunch of shitty lunchboxes? And it's like, yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. It's like, oh, okay.
We'll do it, but you can't do anything, and we'll do everything to make sure that it doesn't become public domain.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I had as far as just like current topics this week. Do you have any news?
Okay, what are the things? I think maybe me complaining about Ruby is going to waste everyone's time again, but that's coming.
We'll save that for we'll do a whole episode on your Ruby experience and whatever it might turn out to be with this new drop.
Right. Fun, pre-controversy. We have Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World coming, and they have
they got three versions of that shit
baby.
They got three versions. One got the audio. Wait, one with the censored.
Yep, that's right. That's the TV one.
Not the audio censored, but only the visual censored.
And then the unedited version, baby. Now, which one do you think I will be watching? At least for one episode, because I don't really have
completely.
Like, oh God, why are we? What are you even?
Kidding me?
What? What
I don't know why that middle one even exists.
I don't know either.
Maybe it's for niggas to watch it on the subway or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, first of all, these motherfucking degenerates. You think they give a shit about putting that shit out in public? They don't give a goddamn. A single goddamn.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. They don't care.
Also, I promise you, right? I don't get a lot out of like most filth, but from my point of view, we've already had the dick slap actually happen in a show that aired. Like, what?
I forgot about that.
There's nowhere else to go. I'm okay. I'll take that back. I'm sure there's a bottom that we haven't reached yet. Yes, I know. Like,
there always is.
There's always a new bottom, but like the distance between the dick slap and anything else is got to be much smaller. So, like, why are we fucking around? Just, like, go full unedited. The people who want it. The people who don't are gonna, like, raise hell on the internet. It's gonna be what it is. And, frankly, like, from what I've read about this series, there's nothing in it that's like, oh, God, I need to see this. You know? Like, it's not like there's gonna be any moral panic from, like, parents whose children are clamoring to watch Harem in Another World, in a Labyrinth in Another World. It's all ready for a niche. So, anyway.
And they're gonna watch it.
They will watch it. Absolutely. I mean, besides that and some of the previews for the upcoming season, I don't really have there's not a lot of news that moves me.
Well, I mean, I'm excited for is it wrong to pick up Girls in the Dungeon, because it's going to be a 2-core season.
That's cool. Okay.
And so, and I know a lot of the source material people who are reading up on it, they said that this is great because these next few arcs are really good and they need the time to expound upon like what's going on, because the most recent season, it wasn't bad, but it definitely was kind of rushed. And then I didn't even really give a fuck at all about the prostitute, like that's not a prostitute one. Like that arc, that was just rushed as fuck. I was like, I don't know what the fuck y'all are doing.
And it got good at the end.
At the end,
but like
yeah.
I promise you, I didn't care at all in the beginning. Like the beginning, it's like it's so like the thing about Danmachi is that it tries to be vanilla in the wrong places. I'm not saying it shouldn't be like a vanilla story.
They need to get back to the dungeon.
Yeah, like the I get that it's a very common trope to do the thing where you have a bunch of hyper-sexualized characters inside the world that they live in, and then you have your sort of dopey vanilla main character who just sort of stands around and just witnesses all of this at all times and whatever else. But that's an aesthetic thing. What the best thing that Danmachi actually had going for it in the first couple of seasons was that there was a clear love interest with a conflict, right? You have the two characters that you're like, this is the romantic core, but then they have to be separated. So now you've got like that complication, which then allows for these other stereotypes of the harem to assert themselves as characters, but give a reason why, you know, they're over, like, the, you know, the whatever, the goddess is like, her boobs are spilling out all the time, and she's obsessively sort of protective, whatever. But like, there were episodes in season 2, like when they leave the city, where you meet other regular people. I remember there was the character who actually had fallen in love with the goddess that was looking after him, and like, it was a very tragic kind of story. They were doing a lot with that, which made the shenanigans of like the harem building, and I'm sorry, they're making a familia. It's a harem. Like,
it's a harem.
Like that part of it took enough of a backseat that all the other drama could be played up, and when the series needed to get like very serious and needed to get very like impactful and heavy, that you could do it. It didn't feel like the other shit was a diversion. In season 3 especially, I felt like everything that did not have to do with the harem was just a diversion. It was the other way around. It was the parts that were supposed to be heavy and world building and interesting that were treated as like a sideshow. And it partly could just be that it was all sort of mangled and mushed together to maybe make the runtime shorter. Yeah. And so they left out a lot of like the cool stuff, that world building stuff, and the feeling of threat and danger. Because they got there with that prostitute chick. They got there at the end where you see like, oh shit, these gods are like fucking shit up. Which one was the one who died or got her ass kicked at the very end of that one?
Oh yeah, I forgot her name, but yeah, someone got fucked up at the end of that season.
Yeah, I was like, yo, that's right. It could go real bad for these motherfuckers, and like the punishment is they are never able to come back down. Yeah, right? Like if you're in the regular world,
celestial.
Yeah, like that's those are some real fucking stakes, and if you apply that to the main cast, oh, it actually matters now that they succeed at whatever they're trying to do. So, am I excited? Sort of.
I know that a lot of people said that the 3rd season was like the beginning of the main storyline.
I believe that.
Makes sense. Is it wrong to pick up girls in the dungeon? Which is like, it's saying girls, but it's like the monster race relations.
Yeah.
What's going on? But then also, I'm just like, I would like for them to expound upon what the fuck like, where did it come from? And I think, did they say that there were other dungeons? No, not that there are other dungeons, but there's a whole world outside of the dungeon where people like come from all over to the dungeon, but they're only talking about Hellenic gods or like Zeus gods or stuff like that. So it's kind of just like, well, where are the other gods in the world? Like, are they on Earth, or do they have their own separate thing? And is this the only dungeon that exists? Like, what's going on outside the dungeon? Because it almost seems like they've given up on progressing through the dungeon because of all the drama in the city.
Exactly.
And
we lost the thread.
Yeah. I didn't really care about them like doing the recruiting thing or like getting the big house from whoever, Apollo or whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, these are necessary, but I would have appreciated if they were necessary in like getting deeper into the dungeon and like leveling up, finding new skills, like making a contract with the blacksmith and shit like that, getting Hestia out of debt and then having that come around, like something like that. But the plot line or the whatever, wherever we're going with the monsters, it cannot be done. They can't just do the monster thing and then be like, okay, now we're gonna go back. No, the monsters have to be an integral part of the storyline because they played it up so much. And like you said, the last few episodes of the second season were great. I thought that like the last 2 episodes of the third season were entertaining, but I only thought they were entertaining because niggas was just bleeding all over the place. Like it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with the actual story. Like they were just like mauling niggas. So I need more than mauling.
Yeah, it was like the very like all the. I remember, was it season 2 where it started with like the battle to get the house, or was that season 3? I don't know.
Yeah.
So when it was like Belle versus everybody, I was like, oh, that's fucking ill. We took away a lot of the things that were sort of backstopping our main character. We're putting them in a real perilous position where you can't see a way out of it. And then the excitement is like following through to a win, however, by hook or by crook. That is why season 1 was so caught fire so much. Because that scene with the Minotaur was like all of that combined. We got so far away from that ethos in the third season, partially because the world building actually had to take over the story. And it's not that the world building is bad, it's that if you push it through the lens of all that monster shit, it has nothing to do with our main characters.
No.
There's nothing to do with them at all. So,
I mean, I want them to go into details more so about like why the gods put the monsters in the tower, like why the monsters cannot be outside the tower and shit like that, how they were able to do that, things like that. I felt like if that stuff was explained more so in the third season, I would have enjoyed it more. But the overall just like we hate monsters thing, it was
heavy-handed and to the point of being just dumb. It wasn't. It did not feel like it's allegorical to the real world. We understand. We're not dumb. We're not stupid. Don't. This is the whole thing. You can't write a character or a story that is smarter than you, the writer, are. If you don't have very well developed and complex ideas about a subject, anything you write about it is not going to be particularly well developed or particularly complex or particularly compelling. It's going to be flat. It's going to be like, these guys are bad because they're racist, and they're racist because they're bad. And you're like, okay, once we've figured that part out, we don't need 10 episodes to spool that. We already know that.
What we need is dungeon diving.
Yes, the part that's actually interesting.
We need some dungeon diving. So hopefully we get back to that. More so the skill system. I want more like into like, integration of the skills and, Belle's OP because he got this new skill and it might seem like stupid, but mixed with all this other shit, it's OP. Like, I want more of that. But so I am looking forward to it. Overlord's coming. I mean, whatever. I'm going to watch it. I'm not as huge of an Overlord fan as everyone else. I enjoy the show, but it's not as like engaging as I feel people make it out to be. At least for me.
It's not. I like that it is this generation's of anime fans mix up of extreme graphic torturous violence and lizard fucking. Yes, and fan service of all kinds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is, because when characters get killed or the violence happens, it is so absurd and over the top and
they take
bloody.
Niggas out permanently.
And yes, they kill lots of motherfuckers. They love, like, the series is built on the "you didn't know my real power" reveal moment, like, over and over and over and over again. And it's not apologetic about that part. Neither is it apologetic about the extreme fan service. I mean, boobs flopping everywhere. Just like, it's everything you could every archetype. They've crammed it all into like one world, one series. And so there's that. The voice acting performances are hilariously like over the top, which I appreciate. Plenty of people get off on the kind of power fantasy here. It's like and I would say that's actually a problem with the series, is that you have a main character who is a regular human who is supposedly not a degenerate, supposedly, all of his like, clanmates were degenerates, which is why all the creatures in his dungeon are some kind of like porn fantasy for somebody. But he's supposedly not, right? He's just stuck here. And in episode 1, his excuse is, well, I played this character in the online game when I was just a regular dude. Now I'm inhabiting this character. I'm just gonna be the same person. But the person he is inhabiting is an evil creature bent on world domination. And that's not like comedy. It's legit. So he's committing genocide.
He's gotta follow through.
He's breeding animals like it's like some Hitler-esque eugenics program. He's wiping out and murdering people. He's deceiving innocents and having
enslaving.
them like he's doing all this horrible shit. So he's not an anti-hero. He's just a villain, like a pretty bad person. And that's always the weird part about Overlord is that normally when you want to do your viewer insert power fantasy, something is done to sort of like
placate,
make you the audience not feel icky about supporting and being excited for the things that you're seeing your insert character doing. But outside of like, the fact that he seems to like to protect the weak if they're human and whatever, there's not a lot to latch onto as far as like the morals or the anything about the Ainz character.
It's really creepy.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
He just gives a lot of speeches and then like mass murders people. And okay, I enjoy that, and I'm not like, I have no feeling about admitting that it's a lot of fun to watch, but that's also the reason why there's not much to it. Any of the characters, the setting, there's like it's deep. It's broad, not deep. If that's the way I would think about it.
Ooh, that's a really good way to put it. That's right, because there are a whole bunch of storylines going on with like the supporting cast in addition to his own, but nothing is like, oh wow, this is gonna be super important later. It's just kind of like, nope, this is just a story, and eventually someone's gonna cross them and they're gonna fuck them up.
Exactly. There's a whole lot of like, oops, I did a genocide moments where it's like, good thing they didn't find out that I'm not really a mass murdering psychopath because I mass murdered a bunch of people in psychopathic ways by accident or
like
whatever.
I'm a butler, but
sometimes I tell this guy to do stuff and then he just enslaves an entire race of individuals and forces them to interbreed so that they can harvest their bodies from okay, I this is fun. But like, what are you saying?
I'm just sorry, y'all. I really checked out with the lizard fucking. Like, they really animated like the lizard fucking, and I was like, all right, I think this is like one step too far from me.
When they show like the like hot and bothered lizard face, and you're just like, oh shit,
oh my god,
oh shit.
Oh, I don't want to remember. Okay, but yeah. That's coming back, and I think like my only other piece of news that I would even be interested in like bringing up is that Cyberpunk Edge Runners is coming out in September.
I'm interested in that. Yes, definitely.
I'm interested only if it's a primarily Studio Trigger led thing, because I do not trust y'all no more. CD Projekt Red. I'm so sorry. Cyberpunk was just, I put time into it. I plan to go back. I plan to go back and start the game over, but I don't know, like, even with the story that they were giving us, I really wasn't that into it. Now, I know Trigger, they're gonna do what they need to do. Like, animation-wise, I'm positive it's gonna look fucking gorgeous. Or extremely stylized and gorgeous within that style. But, yeah, even if they do, like, a Kill la Kill, like, plot ripoff, I don't care. I'll take it, as long as, like, Studio Trigger's at the head. But it looks good. It looks interesting. And since it's Netflix, we're getting all the episodes or I'm assuming we're getting all the episodes on the same day. If that's how they're doing it. But yeah. We'll see. I am excited for it though, because I really do like these character designs. Like a lot. Like if they sold this nigga's jacket, I'd buy it. Like immediately. But yeah. That's about all I got for like news.
Okay. I wanted to talk about a recommendation I have this week that is a longer sort of recommendation than we normally do. So I had the opportunity to read a series called A Night of Embers which can alternatively be translated as the Ember Knight, depending on what service you're using. It is a fantasy action story by an author named Huan Dong, who prior to this wrote and illustrated a series called Gilgamesh, and these two series take place in the same universe. Though if you read Gilgamesh, you'll see that like both the art style, the presentation, and the vibe is a lot different, or at least feels a lot different, especially from like the early chapters.
Yeah.
The best, and this is like high praise, so but it's more like the feeling that it gives off rather than the maybe like the heights it might be able to reach. What I get when I read Ember Knight was some real like Hunter
Tower
of God vibes, but mixed with like a little wuxia, so like your sort of like martial arts, as well as influences from like other fantasy series. Maybe like Red Storm is another one that comes
done well.
It is, but it's a little confusing. So the reason why I take a little bit longer, so I want to talk about some other series that I kind of had a similar relationship to as to how I got into them. So I mentioned like Red Storm, and Red Storm is another manhwa that kind of straddles the webtoon era, because it's much like Ember Knight. Red Storm takes place in the same written universe as another series that predated it called Peerless Dad. And
oh wow,
if you had read Peerless Dad and then went over and read Red Storm, your first takeaway would be these don't have a lot in common with each other, and from like presentation and other things, until maybe you get sort of to the middle to end of Peerless Dad when the tone changes a little bit. But definitely Red Storm, which is a fantasy sort of swords and sorcery, but with a Middle Eastern and Western vibe kind of crammed together. When you start reading Red Storm, there's a lot of that you could tell immediately that there's a lot of depth in the universe that's not being spoon-fed to you, and that there was a lot of effort put into developing the cultures. And so it takes a little bit, I think, for any reader who's maybe not familiar with either the prior series and how they interact, which is very interesting. Takes you a little bit to get into Red Storm, but then once you do, you start to see how a lot of different elements from other classic series are being remixed in a way that are very original. And it felt by the time you're sort of in the pace of the series, you're like, oh, this is its own thing. It's really cool. There's a lot of really cool ideas here. I'm getting a very specific vibe that's not like other things. I had the same experience with Ember Knight because I picked it up blind, did not know that it had a predated series that had even some of the early life of characters that show up in Ember Knight, but it's not a sequel. So I have said all this, and I have not even described what it's about. So Ember Knight is a story of two brothers who are twins. One is named Najin, and the other's name is Nagyun. And Najin is like a genius, like a great fighter, and is being trained to become a knight, which in the world that this takes place in are like super powered agents of whatever kingdom or government that they're aligned with.
Working for, yeah.
And he is like sort of considered to be like the once in the generation prodigy. His brother, Nagyun, is completely worthless, as in weak, and has where anything that Najin is good at, Nagyun is bad at. The only thing Nagyun is good at is concealing his thoughts and his emotions, because when the brothers were young, an accident in their village led to the death of like a bunch of people, where they are accused of setting a fire that killed all these people. And so in their village, both brothers are relentlessly bullied. They have no parents. They're sort of like, they have no parents. They live on their own, but they're treated like garbage. So Nagyun has to pretend to be okay with all of the bullying and beatings that he gets in order to basically preserve his brother's chances to go become this great
a knight.
superhuman. Yeah, become a great knight, and they have all these dreams of like leaving the village and everything else. At the beginning of the story, Najin is assassinated by a group of people who have their faces covered, but are trying to kill off all of the knight candidates in order to, for whatever reason, we don't know. And Nagyun is actually forced to kill his own brother. But because he's known to be the weak one, even though they're identical twins, the people who kill his brother spare his life. And so he decides to take his brother's place because no one would be able to tell them apart as a knight in order to learn the identities of the people who killed his brother and get revenge. The problem is he's not strong. And this isn't one of those series where, the main character gets like an ability to even the playing field in terms of strength. Like, it turned out that the weak one, physically, actually, he was strong all along. No. He's weak. And so he has to survive both like training and threats that operate on the expectation that he is a superhuman. That he has all of the, not just his brother's abilities, but like he is incredibly powerful, which in fact he isn't. But his ability to hide his own thoughts and emotions means that he's actually very good at bluffing. And because he is highly intelligent, he can think through ways of solving the types of problems that, whether they're threats to his life, physical challenges, or other things that allow him to continue on under his brother's identity. So, like, that's the setup for the story. And as things progress, I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is cool, but it's a little confusing in the beginning because, like, a lot of the names are unfamiliar, and the author likes to use, like, all the knights, the people who've actually passed, get nicknames, which they use throughout the whole series. But the nicknames are things like Laughing Turtle, or chick, or the chicken, or like it's like very like banal names. So you'll be like reading a scene and they'll refer to someone as like the chicken this and whatever. I'm like, how could they take this seriously? But as the story progresses and you see what these characters are capable of with like relatively straightforward abilities, there's some hot action scenes. Like, scenes that are so good that you can, and the art is, like, nothing necessarily, like, amazing to write home about, but it is unique. And there's, like, stuff in there, like, I remember I was reading one panel, and you see, like, a character who's very wuxia inspired, like, Chinese martial arts, like, wire fu, and he's, like, running into frame, and it just started to rain, and the way the raindrops are drawn as his body charges forward, that it feels like the scene is in motion. And that's one thing that they're able to, the artists behind it is able to capture so well, is like movement around a space, like establishing where all the characters are when action is happening, what's in Nagyun's mind, what do other people know that he knows, and what are the things that they know that he doesn't, and what he knows and they don't. And so that interplay of like physical violence, spacing, martial arts, special abilities, strategic knowledge, and some humor really, really carries the story to points where I'm reading and I'm like, this could be get to a level of like Hunter x Hunter, where like characters are always strategizing about what they need to do to just live through an encounter, and that's a lot. That's one thing I loved about reading Hunter x Hunter, was that people had abilities, and like, some of them were like OP, and you're like, oh fuck, how could anyone live? But like, realistically, a lot of the fights came down to guessing some property about what the adversary is doing. Yeah. Bluffing the adversary based on what they know about what, the other side can do. And then some feats of like strength, power, and ability that are just like, ridiculous. Like when Kite fucking like chopped the fucking mountain in half, like cutting off that frog motherfucker's head, right? Like you're like, shit, that's OP. But like the best moments are like Yuppie and like Killua and the chameleon dude, and like them just like thinking about what they should be doing. And that's what this That's what the Ember Knight is. It's Nagyun thinking his way through betrayals and traps and superpowered adversaries, all the while trying to pretend like he's his brother, but with people who know his brother, and he doesn't know them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty sick. Like, it's a really, really, really,
it's not done yet, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. I think it's like in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
As far as chapters go. But the wild thing is that there isn't really like a consistent release group for it. Like, you can't read it in like it's very difficult to come across, because I think it's in Naver, but I don't know if it's caught up at all on like the regular webtoon service. So all the ways I've been reading it are through fan translations, and it's not like a popular series, but it's up to like in print or whatever, it's up to like in the high 60s, but like there's not really a consistent translation group that's covering it. So it's like it's just hanging out there, but it's really freaking good, like really good. And it's psychological. And by the way, the main character doesn't always win because he's fucking weak. There are times when like people will think that he is like you know,
shit.
He's the shit, and then he gets one pumped, and it's like because he sucks physically anyway. But he gets over with like bluffing, and because people can't read him, they just assume based on his reputation that like he is capable of more than he is, and because in reality he has been able to do great feats that people have seen, but it's not through strength, it's through something else. There's a lot of tension in every encounter about like, is he gonna get found out? Is he gonna be able to beat this person? Does he have to run away? Are they gonna like learn something? Is he gonna get closer to his revenge? Like, there's a lot going on there, and then they've started to introduce a power system which they call gears, which is actually has the potential. I'm not saying it's there, but has the potential to be as complicated as Nen, because it's like you have to, instead of like with Nen, you make like binding vows, and usually they're to yourself, but in this one with gears, you make it to somebody else, and if you violate it, like it's not that you die if you violate it or you get hurt, but like all your vows are restrictions. They're things you can't do or say. Like one vow might be you cannot land a strike on someone without both of your feet touching the ground, which sounds like, oh, that's not crazy, but then think about the kind of situations you might get into where if you break that vow, you could die, but if you keep to it, you could be like the strongest person on the planet.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Shit is tight. I'm a big fan.
Okay. Well, my recommendation isn't anything like that. My recommendation is Zone of the Enders, which I mean,
I love Zone of the Enders.
Episode. If you knew Jehudi, you knew what I was talking about at the beginning. But yeah, Zone of the Enders. Like I came across it yesterday, and I was like, oh my god, like fuck yeah, like I'm recommending it. If you have not played Zone of the Enders, go to Steam, get it right now. Both games. If we talk a lot about mecha like shit on this show, I think that is one of the games that is the closest representation to what it should feel like to play a mecha game.
100%. Like
it's so good. Like, and I don't know why Kojima won't revisit the fucking shit.
I don't know either. Like, I have no idea.
So good. It's so good. Like every time I play a Gundam game where it's like a free roaming Gundam, I expect to have the like same kind of like customization and abilities and like aerial movement as Zone of the Enders, and it's never like it. The battles are fast paced and flashy and cool. The storyline is cool, like, you know, interesting-esque, like, you know, space colony stuff. But the second game definitely like takes it. Bro, like shit gets wild.
Oh my god, Dingo Everett is one of my favorite characters from games growing up.
So cool.
And his fucking situation of like having basically all his internal organs gone, he can only live in the suit. Yeah, is the shit. There's so many good voice lines, like iconic shit, like Anubis is superior, and like all that other shit. Like the music is some of the.
There's multiplayer. There's
Yes.
multiplayer.
Yeah.
I remember literally inviting niggas over and we would just play Zone of the Enders like all night. All night. What's the name of the mech? The girl mech? Whatever the fuck the girl mech. It was she had like the circle,
yes,
like the spear shit that she would throw at you. Like it's just so cool. You have well, first of all, Jehuti itself, like playing through the main storyline is fun. There's so many options that you can use to fight, like the stuff and things like that. But you can also play with the other suits inside of like the multiplayer and things like that. So, y'all, the shit is just, it's so cool. It's so cool. And if you have not, please go play that game.
Yeah,
it's $3, I think, right now. Like,
oh my god, for real?
I think it's super cheap right now.
Get on that. Get on it. Yes, it's like this. I used to when I was in high school, like I was trying to learn proportions for like drawing mecha. Oh my god, all I did all day was like redraw Joti and Arjet and like Testament, Neath, Einhert, Anubis. Was fucking like it was so great. They had so many great characters. Second Runner, which is the sequel, to me is the pinnacle of the sexy action game. They have not made very many since then. I mean, the closest I think that since that game was probably Metal Gear Revengeance, right? We don't get games like this anymore, which is insane to me because we have the ability now to do so much more.
The blueprint is there. It's like right there.
High speed, sexy action. Everything about it is just like gorgeous. And if you were alive and playing games during the PS2 era, you felt like they were pushing the envelope of like what you could do visually. But if you then go back and look at the designs, these are not like, it's the art style. The art style is so strong. Like everything about the art style is so strong in Zone of Enders. So cool. Yeah.
Also, like Second Runner, I will give it to that game because it was the king of like story scene and then like fight out of nowhere.
Yep.
Like, and you're like, it doesn't do the like transition thing where it's like your fight is about to start. It's like story scene, you're into fighting. Like the nigga's hitting you already. Like, I don't know. It's just it's so good. It's so good. Like the nostalgia is real heavy, but it's not the nostalgia. It's just like it's a quality fucking series.
They just don't make them anymore. That's really
they just don't make them anymore.
Yeah, and
I don't know if that has to do with like the general public or like gamers general like now they don't really care that much about like mecha stuff unless like you're already on board. And Kojima has moved far away from that.
Yes, he has. I think if you can. In the, like outside of the world of like anime, if you go to places like in sports, you'll commonly see a narrative about a genius player who was so good, but because they happen to be on a certain team or play at a time when there were like other players in the league or got fucked over by bad contracts. I mean, like Prince is like a great example in art of like Prince, these amazing performers, but screwed, and in fact the fans of them also got screwed out of great work because of contract disputes, right? Like I was growing up, I was always a Prince fan over Michael Jackson. That had nothing to do with Michael Jackson's being a weird shitter, but just like I like Prince's music more. But like I can admit that we got a lot of shitty Prince albums, not because he's a bad performer. It's because he was just like, I'm just here so I don't get fired.
Ride the contract, yeah.
Right. Like I think there's a series like 4 or 5 albums that he did in a row that were just not good. But it was because he was in a dispute with his label, and as a result, the fans lost like 14 years of his prime, of bangers, right? So like I look at that world, and then I look at like Kojima in the game world the same way. Like getting shackled to Konami for so long just deprived fans of great games. Like we lost a generation of Kojima games, basically. So. Yeah. But this is one. This is not a. This is just one that people don't remember in this era as much. Zone of Enders is fucking sick.
Like I remember I bought it when they re-released it on PlayStation 4 or 3. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably at 3. The end of 3's life cycle. It came back, and again, I was like, this is fucking great. Like, it's just as good when it came out. That shit came out in 2001 and 2003. Them shits are old. A lot of y'all are probably, well, not a lot of y'all who are listening, but a lot of the people who like be gaming now are the target audience that they be aiming for. Y'all were barely born.
Mm-hmm.
Barely born. So like, oh, just play it. It's so good. And the music, the voice music that would come on when Anubis and shit would come out, the fucking chorus. Come on.
It's one of the best, like, most memorable audio themes, like music themes of that generation. I can, in my head, hear the Latin in the chorus going off.
Yes. It's, but yeah, it's so good. Not just highly, I heavily recommend you to go play it if you haven't played it. Even you can consider this me cyberbullying you into like shaming you that you haven't played it, but you need to play it. Like
I'm with it.
You just gotta play it. It's on Steam. It's $6 for the first game. Is it for both? No, it's $6 for the original. Oh wait, no, it's Second Runner Mars. So the second game is $6.
Okay.
For now, and then it goes back up to $30. So just get it. Just get it. It's so good. It's so good. $6 for that game is a steal.
I agree.
Honestly, it's highway fucking robbery.
100%.
But yeah, the fact that it's still $30 over 20 years later, I mean, what does that tell you? But that is all that I have for recommendations.
Yeah, that's about it for me as well.
All right. Well, y'all got those 4 episodes back to back. Shit got backed up. They're all out. They're all on YouTube. They're all on Anchor. They're all on everything. So you're probably catching up when you get to this episode. It'll be the regular release schedule. But episode 100 is coming soon, and there will be some new faces and some old faces that will be popping up for that one. That's probably going to be a long-ass episode. So y'all just go ahead and get ready for that. Like, whatever. It is what it is. It's episode 100. But if you haven't already, make sure you go follow us on Twitter, anime_savants, and then regular anime savants on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Anchor, anywhere you can find us on the internet.
Yep, and you can find me on Twitter at Neural Handshake all the time. Shout out to the individual also who put me onto another series, which we may talk about at a later date, not because it's bad, it's just very new, so there's not as much to go into about it. But yeah, some folks got the manhwa recommendations popping, so I can respect that. Yeah.
All right, then we will catch y'all later. Bye.
Peace out.